Hey, 42 here. Murder. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm not a fan. Mainly for moral reasons, but also it's just so messy. Thankfully, the law agrees with me, and detectives have become ever more efficient at tracking down exactly who is responsible for a particular crime. The various techniques have become incredibly advanced, and now involve some of the most cutting-edge science. So it's now much harder to convict people on good old-fashioned reasons such as he has a shifty face, or she just looks like the type. No body part is safe from forensics these days, and it's not just a dribbling obsessive-compulsive with dandruff that leaves behind saliva, fingerprints and skin. It's all of us. So, what are the various techniques that modern police put to use? Today, we learn how to catch a killer. Although the Chinese used fingerprints in the 1700s to identify certain documents and sculptures, it wasn't until the end of the 19th century that forensic science really took off. The fingerprint was a star of the show for many years, since Sir William Herschel started using it in India as a way to stop forged signatures from the 1860s onward. In 1911, Thomas Jennings was the first person to be convicted of murder on the basis of his fingerprints, with a number of experts on hand to give evidence. And fingerprints replaced Alphonse Bertillon's identification method called anthropometry, which was a set of body measurements found to be far more reliable as a way to ID people than using early photographs, or just by asking, "Are you Dave? No? Okay, I guess you're good to go." Strange though it seems, ballistic fingerprinting actually started much earlier than real fingerprinting, where an individual bullet was identified by its shape, not its fingers in case some of you were confused. In 1835, the British police matched a bullet in a victim to a bullet-making mould in the killer's house. Unfortunately, we quickly moved away from Mama's homemade recipe bullets, and mass production prevented this part of forensics. Until Calvin Goddard invented the comparison microscope in 1925. The first real test of bullet identification was after the 1929 Valentine's Day massacre, when Goddard proved that it wasn't carried out by rogue cops as suggested, but was in fact Al Capone's henchmen. How romantic. The next big jump was when British scientist Alec Jeffreys pioneered DNA profiling, in, appropriately, the year 1984. Big Brother isn't just watching you, he's also collecting your skin. Of course, since the dawn of civilization, the most important part of any crime is the truth. Who's telling it, who's hiding it, and what was Colonel Mustard doing with it in the billiard room? In China, 3,000 years ago, suspects were forced to fill their mouths with dried rice, and after a short while, spit it out again. Anyone whose rice was still dry was found guilty of lying, since fear and anxiety were known to reduce saliva. The first lie detection device that was based on actual science rather than some sort of magic demon stick was Lombrosso's glove, which measured blood pressure. This eventually morphed into the polygraph that we know today. You know, the machine that every day answers the question on millions of TV viewers' lips. Who was the father? It measures respiratory rate, blood pressure changes, and changes in galvanic skin response, which is the bioelectric reactivity of the skin. Of course, no polygraph is completely reliable, since the responses that they look for are not unique to lying. They can also be caused by simply being nervous. Understanding the way a killer thinks and behaves has become a huge part of solving cases, and providing the plots for a never-ending sea of TV detective shows. The birth of forensic psychology probably has its roots in the notorious Jack the Ripper mystery, when an unknown killer terrified London with a series of bloody murders. Lacking anything concrete, they simply tried to build an image of who their killer was, theorizing as to whether the motivations were madness, sexual, religious, or a delightful cocktail of all three. But the large proportion of forensic psychology is not trying to work out what serial mass murderers eat for breakfast, but more on deciding their mental health. The insanity defense is a legal classic and goes all the way back to the Code of Hammurabi in ancient Mesopotamia. The Louvre in Paris houses a 7.5-foot stone slab inscribed with much of the law set by Hammurabi, the 6th king of Babylon. It includes mercy for the insane, and also gives us the famous eye for an eye. Some forensic methods, however, are a little more unusual. And no, I'm not talking about using a large woman called Ivanka to talk to the dead and tell us what Elvis was really up to the day JFK died. One thing you don't hear often is, thank goodness for nuclear bomb testing. But using the levels of carbon-14 in human tissue to get an accurate age reading has helped a number of cold cases, all thanks to the atmospheric nukes that we detonated during the Cold War. This caused a noticeable global spike in carbon-14, which is a radioactive form of carbon that does occur naturally, but we doubled the levels during these tests. Since then, it's been declining, so you can actually map the amount in tissue to approximate dates of global levels, meaning we can detect exactly when someone died just by their carbon-14 levels. Sometimes though, you don't even need science, you just need good old-fashioned boredom. Jim Scarf and Dave Heitzman, two detectives in Washington state, designed a set of playing cards to give out to bored prisoners, printed with pictures of cold case victims. Their logic was that the cards would get around the prison, and some prisoners with a grudge or looking to reduce their sentence might give up a killer of one of the victims. And it worked. In 2011, the Get Into Jail Free cards produced a conviction for the 1979 murder of Suzanne Schwartz. And what about the future? I'm not talking about a Minority Report ability to stop murders before they happen, but what tech do we have in the works right now? Well, for lie detecting, it would obviously be a great help to bypass all the obstructive skin and facial expression nonsense and just get right into the brain. A functional MRI scan is thought to have a 97% accuracy level for lie detection, since it shows the increased blood flow to the brain that is required to help you create an untrue story. Unfortunately, it can't be used on politicians, as they are often shielded from the rays by their unwieldy comb-overs. Rumour has it that one particular politician has developed an impenetrable golden mesh of hair that enables him to lie with impunity. And as for DNA, well gentlemen, I have some bad news for us. It's now possible to have a good guess at a man's surname just by looking at his Y chromosome. The male chromosome has been passed down fairly unchanged from generation to generation. So, by building a database of old samples with names that we know, the police can look for a similar Y chromosome to yours, and it's almost a 1 in 4 chance that they can guess your surname. So I hope this has been useful if you're thinking about rounding up a crime-solving team. And since I'm an equal opportunities YouTuber, if you are planning a murder and this video has helped you, you are very welcome. But seriously kids, don't try this at home. Thanks for the view, subscribe for more, 42. But there's a man equally as despicable as Adolf Hitler, yet very few people even know of his existence. You may be either grossed out when I tell you this, or totally amazed, but inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar completely liquidizes.